guys, Dave Limke here from Midwest Sports. Been around this business for a long time. Currently work as the primary buyer for tennis rackets, tennis footwear, strings, grips, basically all the equipment you need to play tennis. So been a lifelong player, 40 plus years, playing since a little tiny kid with the original graphite back in the day, and play with Babolat now. I'm not paid to say that, but just really enjoy the game, and hopefully can answer some of the questions you guys had. So our next question is from Ben Grace, 15, and he is I guess a Prostaff player right now. He's playing with the Prostaff 97 CB. He's looking for something with a little more punch, maybe not quite as much punch as a Pure Arrow he mentioned in the question. So the old Prostaff 97 countervail right here, Feds racket, slightly lighter than Feds racket technically. Very thin beam, braided construction. Kind of hard to hit with, to be honest. For a very advanced player, very small sweet spot. I'd say if you're going to jump up just one step, if you stayed within Wilson, Blade 98 would be your next step up there. But again, it's still a very thin beam. This is the most popular franchise on tour with Wilson's ATP and WTA players. So still for a very aggressive player that swings really hard and fast. So this would be probably the most logical jump within Wilson's line. You do mention Pure Arrow. So I don't want to throw out the Pure Arrow as an option because, to be honest, they've got a new one. This is really sweet racket that not a lot of people know about yet because it just came out, Pure Arrow VS. So it's a 98 square inch head. It's not as powerful as the Pure Arrow that everybody kind of knows that Rafa plays with. The beam's a little wider on it. It's a 100 square inch head. This is a more player focused version of that racket. So it's a thinner beam than the regular Pure Arrow. A little bit smaller head. It's a 98. So could be a sleeper. Again, not a lot of people know about this one, but I thought I'd mention that because you do mention the Pure Arrow. This is a more player-focused Pure Arrow BS. All right, so a question we get pretty often is what grip size should I be using? It's kind of a range for most people. It's not like putting a shoe on and you immediately can tell that it's way too big, way too small, but even a lot of the touring players surprisingly use grips a lot smaller than you would think. Federer and Nadal, most famously, they both play with 4 1/4 inch grips, which is the second smallest grip for most people on the grip size spectrum. So a couple ways you can look at it. There's ways you can measure it, which is where you look at the second crease, the palm of your hand there, up to the tip of your ring finger. Measure that. Whatever that distance is, you're going to get a measurement that's 4 1/8 inches, 4 1/4, 4 3/8, 4 1/2, 4 5/8. That's the grip size that you're going to have the options for to buy in rackets. So that measurement should align somewhat with the grip size measurement. So not set in stone. I would say people, if you're kind of in between two grip sizes, always err on the side going a little bit smaller. You can always put an over grip on there. It's always easier to make the grip bigger. Then if you get it too big, you really can't make it smaller. You're kind of stuck with it. So personal preference, again, if you're looking for a little more spin, if you're using heavy wrist snap, if you use a semi-western grip, right here I use a grip a little smaller than I would measure for. I would measure for about a 4 1/2, but I actually like a 3/8. So it boils down to personal preference, but those measurement ways, that'll at least get you in the ballpark of where you should be. All right, so Ethan Will 25 is asking difference between Salon ALU power and Babolat RPM power. So Babolat RPM power is brand new, and the idea with it is that it's just a more playable, more responsive poly, which there's a million polyester strings out there. Generally speaking, poly is going to have a stiffer feel. It's more durable, more notch resistant, more for a big hitter, somebody that swings really hard and fast. ALU power by Salon, that is like the definitive copolyester string that's been around for years and years. Been on the Pro Tour for over 20 years now. The most widely used on the Pro Tour, so tons of people know that. It's actually quite playable. It's amazing how well that string's held up over the years, even with everything new that comes out. That is still the go-to. We sell more of that than just about any other polyester string. And then RPM power, we'll see. It's a new entrant into the market. I don't know that enough people have really tried it to have a big following just yet, but it's a really solid entry. And one thing I would keep in mind is that these are two companies that make their own strings. So in terms of the R&D that goes into it, when Babolat comes out with a new string, when Salon comes out with a new string, you know they did their homework on creating something that's really solid. So my recommendation, if you're on the fence, buy one of each, try them for yourself. Both really solid though.